Hey everyone, this is CineEmi, and today is going to be my first of my um, CineEmi Design With Me. I don't know, I think that's what I'm going to go with. If not, the name will be different on the description. First and foremost, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm told you have to do this at the beginning, not the end, like I did on my last video, which I took a break in between and texted a friend of mine and was told I need to do it at the beginning and maybe the end too. Okay, so my saga of my Devil's Snare socks. So yeah, I got this sock yarn. It's called Out West by Scan Cocaine at a yarn trunk show at Dances with Wool in Midlothian. And I thought, because I'd made DK socks before, um, that I only needed one skein of yarn. Thing is that I didn't take into account the cables. The cables are a big factor in yarn because, like crochet, they eat the yarn like a lot. Case in point, the where did I put the finished ones? Um, the finished socks, I have like the tiniest bit of yarn left over. I only got 2 repeats on this one because I started toe up, and that's one skein of yarn. I like a longer leg than this, but because of the heel that I use, it actually goes up quite high. Um, so yeah, I have a designer friend that's gonna take these and kind of color match close enough that I can fade them in, so it'll look like a design element. I'm gonna say in the pattern um, something like either 2 skeins of yarn, or you can do what I did, and these are the yarns I used, and you can fade in some on the foot. Because I do know some people like to do that. I'm not a fan of it, but some people like it. I do like fading, just not on my socks. I don't know why. I liked them to be either uniform or color blocked. Um, but yeah, so I had to stop these. I was gonna write up the toe up version. I didn't think I was gonna actually I didn't think I was actually going to knit the toe up version. I was gonna do like a recipe pattern, and when I couldn't finish these, my head was like, I don't want to move off of this pattern yet. And I love these socks. I mean, even though it's speckled, variegated, whatever you want to call it, because there are speckles in here, but it's mainly variegated. But there are some speckles. Um, I love the way it looks in this sock. I just love the way the cable looks. I thought you weren't supposed to cable with variegated yarns, but sometimes, wow, my eyes. The green of the green screen is bringing out the green in my eyes. I didn't notice that before. Ooh, green. I love my green eyes. They change color depending on what color is around me. So either they can go from green, like bright green, to muddy green, to light chocolate brown. They're considered hazel, but they mainly are green, um, with a tiny bit of brown. And actually, I apparently have like a ring of blue, like around my iris or something like that. Like the thinnest little ring of blue or something like that. Um, I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it is. I was told that by my eye doctor. Not important. Um, my dad has blue eyes, and so does my granddad. Um, yeah. Okay, so where was I? I got distracted by the green. Oh yeah, she's gonna. Yeah, so I didn't want to move off of this. And there was a trunk show for Urban Girls Yarn at my local yarn store, Center of the Universe. And I went in, and she was a very nice lady, and she had a bunch of different yarns, but I fell in love with the green I can't remember what this is. It's on my Ravelry page, which will be linked below. Um, I wish I had enough. I hate doing a bind off on cuffs, because no matter what I do, it is always flares out like this. So I like doing um, I like doing the rolled over cuff, but I knew I wasn't gonna have enough yarn, so I just did the regular cuff. But I fell in love with this yarn. It's just a gorgeous green. I don't know if you can see because of the lighting that likes to change. It's coming out more evergreen on the camera than it actually is in real life. It's more emerald green in real life. Um, and yeah, so I've got this one has 3 cables in the front with some pearls in between. And on the backs, they've got pearls, lots of pearls, knit sections because it's I wanted this small cable on the back, but I didn't have a cable that I kind of didn't want to pack too many cables in the back. Um, but because of this section and the heel on this one, I decided to do something different on the other fingering weight versions. But yeah, so it's got a small cable. This was actually really nice to knit because, you got on the back row, you got a little rest row, like a little rest section before you had to do more cables when you had to do 2 sets of cables, big cables. Alright, so the fingering weight version, because I didn't have the yarn for the DK socks, the lady that's dyeing it for me, Martha, I will link her stuff below. She ordered DK yarn, and we've been having recently, the Sandston post office, apparently something is up with them, something bad, and I'd never had anything happen until recently. I always thought if I knew if it got to Sandston, it was going to get here the next day. But Martha had her yarn sit for ever, and never get delivered until yesterday. So I'm giving her the socks tomorrow so she can dye. The yarn, not dye. But I actually have a yarn bag that I ordered a while ago, that is going to be here, that's actually supposed to hold these socks in it. But it sat at the Sandston post office for 3 days and then somehow went to North Carolina. I mean, literally, it was within 30 minutes of my home, and now it's in Charlotte. It's supposed to be delivered today, according to the app that I track my shipping on. It says it's supposed to be delivered today. It's in Charlotte. But yeah, okay, so when I started doing these, I did not want them to be the same exact, even though the stitch count was different, I didn't want them to be the same exact socks with just a bigger version of the cables, because this cable, even though if you put the cables next to each other, they're the same width and stuff, I changed the stitch count, so they're actually more stitches. So the cable in the middle is the same cable, just bigger. The cables on the sides are the exact same stitch count, exact same size. Well, not they look smaller, but they're the exact same number of stitches. So the front, same, different stitch count. The back, on the other hand, if you watch my last thing, I said I was going to go more in depth on this, my podcast thing. So there's going to be, I've decided after doing this that there's going to be 2 different versions. I'm only knitting this version. I've knit too many of this pattern. And I've ripped out a lot. Not just this one. I have ripped this one out, but the DK ones ripped out a lot. But this section, if you look on, when I was doing these socks, the Okay, so you see it better on this, but the knit section that I was like, it was a rest or whatever. When I was doing these, I got to this part and realized I was going to be playing yarn chickens. So I was like, this section right here that I do on these heels. By the way, these heels are, I said it in the last video, was Anna Fletcher, Vanilla is the New Black, Vanilla is the New Black reversed, with the stitch count from Vanilla is the New Black, DK, and sport weight version. So I think there's 4 now, I think, or maybe 5. I like Vanilla is the New Black, Vanilla is the New Black reversed, and Vanilla is the New Black DK and sport weight. There is also, I think, like a garter version or something. I remember seeing like there were 2 more versions. But I noticed that I was like, if I had something in those 4 stitches, I totally could have, and I could have also done these purl stitches. I could have done that in these 2 sections on the sides, because that's just supposed to be straight knitting. But you could totally do the pattern there. So I was like, well, on this sock, when I'm in that section, then I'll just do a pattern type thing. And take it all the way down to the foot. Thing is, though, this is a bunch of, I don't know if we can see with the lighting, it's a bunch of little cables that go this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then this way. It makes, in person, on camera it didn't look all that cool, but in person it makes a really cool design. And if you were using like more speckled than this is, because I mean more variegated, this is mainly, I think, just speckled. I don't know if you can see it. It's a mint green with like blue. Yeah, you can see there the blue shows up a little bit more in there. It actually shows up a lot more than it does in person. These are all like pale blue, not as bright blue as it looks on this camera. It's because it's pale mint and pale blue. And I intend to take the cables all the way down, but there are no rest rows. There is a cable on that section every single row. There's just increases and decreases added on there. So I've decided on the pattern to write this as a recipe, or like have this as an option. If you don't want to do that, you can just put in that section, you can just knit and not have to do the mini cables, because one of my friends said not doing that. But there are some people that really love cables that will do it. I did an entire hat with this back and forth pattern, so I do know there are people that like to. I did not like to. I did not know that was what I was doing when I started the hat, but I love the hat. But yeah, so I intend to, the reason for these 2 sections being there and not being knit is, 1, to give it a difference in between the fingering weight version and the DK version, and 2, so that I can carry it down. So yeah, so that's those. And let's see the other simpler one to talk about. Alright, so I started this like 2 or 3 years ago. It's very beach themed. The title has been Sandy Toes, which my mom's name's Sandy, and she likes the beach, so it's beach themed. So when I found these yarns, I was just like, yes. So it's the tail is going to be really simple, but once you get up into the body of it, which I'm actually worried that I'm going to run out of yarn, but I know she still dyes these yarns, but I may ask next month if I can have one of these white ones, another one, because I got 3 skeins of yarn, because the shawl that inspired me was only 3 skeins of yarn, 2 of the main color, 1 of the contrast color. But once you get up into the body, I'm gonna have a ton of lace that is beach themed, and then the bind off, I want to have, I haven't decided if I want to have it in this yarn or this yarn. I'm thinking this because it's supposed to look like clam shells. is the bind off. I'm gonna have two versions of a bind off, I think. I haven't got there in the designing because I have only ever worked on the tail. um, but I'm gonna either have an I-cord as one option, and then the other option being a clamshell thing that I have knit before, just not on this. Um, it's kind of the same type of deal as the I-cord, where you have to like knit a certain amount of extra stitches, and then every row you bind off like one. But all the way across the top, it'll be clamshells on the sandy toe shawl. So I might end up having to contact the lady and ask her if she has any more of this in stock. Even if it's not the same base, I'm okay with that. Because having to have 4 skeins of yarn for a shawl instead of 3 is annoying for people who are on a budget like me. But at the same time, worth it so you don't have to play yarn chicken. But yeah, so the reason I frogged this, as I stated in my podcast video, is back when I first started it, I really hated garter edges. I liked that they made it lay flat, but I didn't like the look on the edge. I wanted a neat slip stitch edge. But with changing colors, I had, it made the thing look weird. It made it look like a weird blip every time you change colors. So I ended up switching it in the pattern so that instead of slipping the first stitch when you were doing a new color, you knit it. But then it messed it up. It just looked weird to me. And then, I had messed up some rows, and done some weird stuff, and it just didn't look right to me. Even though I was so close to being able to start the last section, but I have this weird perfectionist thingy. Even though it doesn't have to be perfect, but if I can fix something, I will. So yeah, I'm dealing with the whole loose stitches due to the yarn being very kinky. As you can tell from this string right here, this yarn does not like being ripped out. And it is just kinked all the way. And it does it, like, even when you knit it, I like pull like really hard before I do my stitch. This is not attached to any yarn. Oh yeah, I finished this section because I cut off all the yarns. Like once I also did not like carrying up the yarn because I did the same thing that I did on this section. I pointed it out in my last video, I think. I found someone taught me a way to carry the yarn where it's still noticeable on the inside, but you don't see it on the edge. And I'd forgotten to do that on this one, so I'm going to take these 2 tails and wrap it around and then weave them in. But I cut the yarn every section instead of carrying it up, even though it's only like, I think like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like 10 rows. Which sounds like a lot, but in fingering weight, it's not that high. So I cut the yarn, so when I pulled everything out, I have a bunch of these misshapen balls. And now I finished one ball, and I'm going to go into the next one. Because of the misshape, like the kinkiness of these, I'm not getting as much, like I've had to start sections, like I've run out of yarn before I finished the section that the yarn was used in. But I'm dealing with that, and I've told myself I'm okay with it. But yeah, so I'm now going to carry up the yarn. The only ones I'm going to cut are the white ones. And I'm liking that idea a lot better than I was originally. so I don't have as many ends to weave in at the end, or people won't. And I just like the way this is. I like the way I'm doing it now as opposed to when I first started designing it. I'm doing about 10 minutes a day on this, mainly because it's just garter until you get to the white section, and then it's a wave stitch at the moment. But yeah, so I want to finish this, and the design I love, but garter stitch is still not my friend. But I've been using it when I'm like really, really tired, because I don't have to think as hard on this as I do any of this other stuff. So it's for mainly when I'm really tired. But yeah, that's coming along. That was 2 days of work, even though that sounds like it should be further along. It's 2 days of 10 minutes of knitting each. Alright, so the big mama. As I said on my knitting podcast, this is being designed for my Aunt Tammy. She wanted a shawl with pockets that she could wear at work because it's cold there. I was supposed to have had this done by November, but I had arm issues due to crocheting with cotton. I don't remember if I finished the story on the podcast, but it was my friend Brittany wanted me to make these booties out of cotton that were designed in cotton yarn, and I was already doing amigurumi in cotton, the other thing in cotton. Cotton is really bad on your joints, so when I started doing those booties, I injured my arm. Golfers and tennis elbow, issues with the wrist, so I had to stop knitting for a while. But I started this with 2 different yarns, ripped it out, finally found this yarn that I really like. It, in the ball, is more gray. Just like the first yarn I got it on Webs for a good deal, and it was supposed to be charcoal. Online it looked like a medium gray to dark gray, but not black, and it was called charcoal. It came, and the band said black, and it was black. And I looked, the numbers were the exact same. So I tried it because I bought it. I was going to use it. And I could not knit with it. It was horrible. For me. For this design. I just couldn't. I gave it to my friend Sky. So, because she at least will use it. And she likes to make crocheted granny square stuff, and I think that would make a really nice granny square blanket. Like the yarn, the way it worked, I think it would make a really nice. But it does not work for this. It's more lacy than this could be with, because I wanted it to at least be lightish weight, but at the same time hold in, like, give you warmth. So I found, by watching a bunch of videos, how to do a pocket, and then I switched it around for the other side. So basically for this, I knit all the way up until I thought I wanted to start the pocket, like have the opening for the pocket be. And then I bound off these middle stitches and finished the row, and then when I came back, I cast on all of the stitches that I bound off, and also had them on holders. I did a provisional cast on, so there was actually a cable on right in that section, and so I ended up getting like 2 inches up and not liking the fact that there was a gaping hole. It wasn't bad to knit with, but it was just like I wanted to finish the pocket. So I ended up, once I got 2 inches, I took my needles off and connected them to the cable that was holding the other stitches live, and I knit down until I got where I could sew it into the bottom. I added a little bit more fabric than I probably should have because I wanted room so that you could put a lot of stuff in it because I like big pockets. Um, but I like how this worked out. It's my first ever pocket, so I'm impressed. Um, but on the other side, what I'm gonna do is, okay, so I work until, um, it's basically the same but opposite. So, but I'm not binding off any stitches. So you put a bunch of stitches on hold onto a separate cable, and you cast on that same row instead of this where it was separate because you had to bind off and then cast on. You put the stitches on a hold and cast on so it goes over top of that section, um, and then you just keep knitting until you're done, and then you go back and put the needles on the cable that was holding the live stitches and knit down. I think. I don't have the pattern in front of me, but I think that's what I re-engineered. But I love this thing. My mom, I wrote it for both DK and worsted weight. I'm knitting it in DK, and then once I'm finished this, I'm gonna cast it on in the same yarn but in a worsted weight. Um, and it's gonna be for my mom because she wants one too. But hopefully not in this. Okay, in the ball it looks. I think I stopped saying that story when I was talking about the black. This ball, it looks gray brown, but more gray in the ball. But once you knit it, it looks more brown. My aunt says she's okay with it though, and as long as my aunt's happy, I'm happy. Though I feel really guilty that I have not finished this in time. It's just I'm not like it's a lot of knitting, and I'm not a rectangle person. But I agreed to it because it's my aunt, and it's one of my favorite aunts, and I love her. So I would not do this for a lot of people. Just like I made a baby blanket for my brother's best friend, and my brother's best friend is someone that I highly look up to. Like was my whole childhood was just there, and was like a brother, but not. Like he was close to that level. So I made a like a heirloom lace baby blanket for his first child, um, because it was him. But I would not do that for anyone, but probably my big brother. But yeah, so this I work on 2 to 4 rows a day, and it's steadily coming along. I haven't had to rip out in a long time. Ooh, also these things, I can't remember where they're from, but I'll tag them below. I love them. They hold like the excess yarn that to be woven in so that I don't accidentally knit with it. I got a bunch of doggies in white and black. I got one there, and are there any others? I don't see any others, but I got like 6 of them, and I've used 5. They're on different projects. But yeah, this also it's got a lace pattern because I was trying not to. It's not anywhere close to the crochet pattern, but you know how a lot of crochet patterns have a lot of like mesh type holes. I was trying to do something similar but not exact, and then I wanted a pattern in the middle and on the edges that had a lot of like straight knitting, so that it when you did the pocket that it would have like a textury pattern, um, but that you couldn't see everything that was in there, maybe like shadows and stuff. Um, Whereas, with this, you can see my hand through it. Um, so that is why these are the way they are. I thought it was too big, but I looked at and talked to one of the designers of the shawl that she'd originally sent me, and they told me that this is actually on the small side for shrugs. I think they're called shrugs. Shawl with pockets. Shrugs. Um, but yeah, so this is actually on the small side, which is shocking to me because it's huge. I mean, look at it. mean, this is like the front of a sweater. But yeah, I'm hoping to have this done before November of next year. I need to work. It's just so much repeating of the same pattern over and over again. But some people like that. Again, I'm not, but I will do it for people I love. Plus, it's my own design. And it does knit up quite fast-ish once you get in a rhythm. It's just I can only do that rhythm for about 10-15 minutes. I think the longest I've ever gone is about an hour and a half, but that was on one section that I ripped out. Yeah. But I do love this thing, especially the pocket. I love the pocket. I think I've been talking for a very long time, and I need a break and something to eat because I've only had lunch today and nothing else. So I'm gonna go get something to eat. And then I have to edit this video and my knitting podcast. I love editing, but it hurts my head. Yeah. Well, I hope you like and subscribe. As I said at the very beginning, because it really helps me out with the algorithm. And I hope to see you next week. If I don't see you next week, then it might end up being a bi-weekly type thing. We shall see. I hope you have a wonderful week, and God bless.